Hi, welcome back. My name is Brittany, and today's video is a February wrap-up. As always, I hope you read the best books last month. Comment down below what your favorite read was from February, and let's just dive right into the 8 books I read. I read 3 audiobooks and 5 physical, and I think I'll just go in order again of what I finished first and how the month went. The first book I finished is Crescent City 3: House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas, narrated by Elizabeth Evans. So this series started off with Crescent City 1. Bryce is Fae, and she teams up with the notorious fallen angel assassin Hunt Athalar as a murder very close to home hits, kind of shakes up the community, and there's a demon on the loose. So that's where our main characters start. And then things progress into like a larger kind of villain at play, secret powers. There's mermaids and a sea otter delivery critter. He was cute. Lore and some history. At this point in Sarah's writings, universes and other series are starting to connect. So those things really come into play in this third book. I really did like Elizabeth Evans. I feel like she embodies a lot of Sarah's characters really well. Overall, I didn't like it. I was nervous to get into this book. I did feel some of the excitement from the release day, so I did pick it up, I think like the day after it came out. And I was hopeful, like I wanted to love it, I just didn't. I did like chapter 14, and that section of the book does like tied into Sarah's Instagram post she had done about Bryce turning around and hoping there was something left to save. So I like how that played out, because you look at the post and you think one thing, but then when you get into the story, it ended up just kind of shaking out a different way. But overall, like, unfortunately, I don't think I was ever going to like this book. It's urban fantasy. That's just not my preferred fantasy genre. I didn't really connect to a lot of these characters, and I think I've learned throughout reading that I'm a very character-driven reader. So if I'm not connected to your characters, I probably won't enjoy the story very much. So that was definitely just like another kind of negative. And then this third book, things felt really campy and tropey to me. A lot of the writing felt cheesy and just kind of silly. The serious moments didn't really hit serious. A lot of the reveals and big moments were just kind of like lackluster. I think because I was missing that connection. Bryce and Hunt, like their relationship didn't really seem to improve to me. The tie-ins I thought were strange. Like there just were so many things that didn't work for me. And I don't know if it's just a Sarah J. Maas problem. I think in general, I've been frustrated with fantasy romance. So I think it is time for a little break from that genre, unless I'm feeling called to it. I think it's just time to take a little breather. Interestingly enough, I thought Crescent City was like, I thought this was like the middle of the series, but I believe that it concludes Bryce and Hunt's story, and that Crescent City will continue with other characters. I don't know anything else other than that. That's just some of the buzzings I've heard about the series. I don't know if I'll continue on. I don't know, we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see how I feel when that happens. The next book I picked up was not planned, but I had a Libby loan came through, and that was for Riley Sager's The Only One Left. This is a thriller following Kit, who is a live-in health aide for Lenora Hope. And Lenora is kind of like the town boogeyman. There's like a little rhyme about her. You know, she lives in the opulent, creepy house at the top of at the bluff on a cliff. And Lenora was heavily implicated, but never charged, never convicted, for the murder of her mom, dad, and sister. So Kit, one thing I really liked is how Kit approached Lenora. In healthcare, we're supposed to be unbiased, you know, objective. Like, I'm treating a criminal the same way I would treat my teacher. You know, like, you just are supposed to treat everybody the same. And Kit really does try, but inside she acknowledges like, oh, like that's a little weird. Like, I'm like in this murder home, like going up and down the stairs where someone died brutally, and I'm supposed to like just treat Lenora like a normal person. And that's hard to do, because at the end of the day, healthcare providers of any kind, we're all people, and like that would be a little hard to do. So I do feel like Riley Sager wrote about that really well, and Kit does try to treat Lenora like a human being, and Kit provides good care. Lenora's now disabled, and that's why she needs help. And through Kit taking care of Lenora, Kit kind of starts to dig into like, what happened to your family, and eventually gets some answers. And I think I'll just leave it at that. The house, like the descriptions, like the overall feeling of the book was eerie, creepy. Things were a little unsettled. The house itself is written in a great way. Like it's on like the edge of the cliff. So like you go to like the second or third story of the house and it feels like you're falling because the house, like the infrastructure is not great anymore. Yeah, I liked the house a lot. I think it would be a good fall time read, but I also read this on vacation and I felt like that was a fun vibe. I was definitely invested and like I start to like read fast when I'm interested and like, oh, it's gonna happen. So I found myself like reading kind of fast, like wanting to know what's going on. I'm kind of in the minority a little bit, it looks like, on Goodreads as far as the ending of the book. I enjoyed most of the plot twists, and there was like a couple of them I didn't see coming. I was like, no fucking way. Some were very cool, but I think with this book personally, less would have been more. I've come to learn that I don't need a book fully resolved. I don't mind having cliffhangers or things left unfinished. Like, I don't mind having questions because, you know, if a book is written well enough and leaves some things open-ended enough, I find myself thinking about it down the road. And I feel like that just goes to show like what the author's capable of, you know, that they can leave you with something that you're still thinking about months, years down the road. So I like that when things are kind of unfinished, and this book really wrapped up like with the bow, the matching paper, like it was done. So I think I probably could have done without a few plot twists. And I think another part of like the ending, like why I didn't like it, is when I read a thriller, like it's occurring in our world, in our dimension, unless otherwise specified, like that's where my brain is rooted. And so when the twists and turns get too crazy and wacky and like there's just like twist after twist after twist and like, you know, like it just feels like a Lifetime movie. It feels unrealistic. Like it starts to feel like too crazy, and that pulls me out of the story because I'm like, well, that wouldn't happen. Like, and now I'm out of it. So I think that's kind of what happened toward the very end. I would still give this a solid 3 stars. I can't give it a total 4 just because the ending, I was like, like that was kind of okay. But overall, like I still think it was a really fun time. The third book I read this month was The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas, and this is described as a horror novel. I'd definitely say suspenseful, a little thrilling, and kind of some paranormal stuff, and that was cool. I really enjoyed this book. This is a debut novel from Isabel Cañas, and she's also the author of Vampires of El Norte, which is definitely on my list now, like moving it up. This book follows Beatrice after her father has passed during kind of like the uprising and the unsettled times of the Spanish War for independence. Her and her mother are kind of found without a home. So Beatrice catches the eye of Rafaldo and jumps into a marriage proposal. You know, she's trying to secure lodging, security, finances. Like she's trying to like find a safe place because after her dad passed away, her and her mom were living with her awful aunt. So she's like, I gotta get out of this. I'm gonna like, this sounds good enough, we're doing it. So she moves into Rafaldo's home and is quickly realizing that things are not what they seem. Rafaldo's first wife has passed. She was kind of this mysterious figure in the community. No one really knows what happened to her. Rafaldo's sister also lives on the hacienda, like on the home space, and she's got something going on. Like she's not welcoming towards Beatrice. And lastly, the house doesn't want Beatrice there. This would be a great fall time book. I did read this one in Mexico, and so it was really cool to have all that Mexican, like the Spanish words and the influence, the descriptions, those just all fit really well. Similar to The Only One Left by Riley Sager, The hacienda, the house itself, is very much a character in this novel. I like, within Mexican culture, the house very much is a part of the family. It has its own memories, personality, like it can act out. So that was really fun. When things, like when you start to figure out what's happening, I liked the explanations that we got. I liked the way the story progressed. There's a few things left unanswered and kind of somewhat resolved at the end, but again, like I was saying, it worked for this story. This is a dual perspective novel following Beatrice, but we also get Andreas, who used to live in the hacienda that she's moving into, but now he has gone away and he's back and he is working towards priesthood. So we do get a really nice back and forth from them. There's a little bit of forbidden romance, and just the writing style is really beautiful, but it also gets pretty creepy. For being described a horror, I wasn't personally scared. It was definitely strange. I mean, I guess I haven't read a ton to compare it to, but I don't think I've ever been super scared from a book. So hopefully if you check this out, maybe, hopefully I'm not leading you into something horrifying. I did think it was a really fun time and a great Mexico fall vacation read. The next book I read was The Murmur of the Bees by Sofia Segovia, translated by Simon Bruni. I had initially thought I would maybe listen to this novel, but I did end up reading it. And this was this was so good. I really liked this book. And both the Hacienda and The Murmur of Bees complemented each other nice. They both take place in the 1920s, around the Mexican War for Independence. The Murmur of Bees also covers the Spanish influenza. I can't remember exactly where in Mexico they occurred, but they just had similar things of family and multi-generational homes, the homes themselves having personalities and feelings, those were very similar. So the books complemented each other well, even though they were totally different. The Murmur of Bees follows really it's a generational story. It starts off with Nana Reja, and she enters this village as a new mother, and unfortunately her baby passes away, but because she had just freshly had a child, she's able to breastfeed and be a wet nurse for another child. And so you get to see the domino effect of how the child she feeds grows up, has his own family, and then his own family. So she's seen multi-generations come from this child that she had initially saved, has been a wet nurse for this community, and is now an elderly woman just chilling in her rocking chair. One day, Nana is all of a sudden gone from her rocking chair, and that is very worrisome because she doesn't leave. She wakes up, goes to the rocking chair, goes to bed. That's what she does. So when she's one day missing, everyone is oh, she's dead. That's it. When they find her though, they find her with a baby covered in bees and a beehive, and that is Samano Pio. And Samano Pio is the sweetest baby angel. He's just a sweet little baby. He grows into the kindest, caring young man. And it really follows him, his godmother and godfather, Beatrice and Francisco, their family, what they go through with the war, what they go through with influenza, being post-pandemic after a few years, the influenza part was really fascinating to read about. Sophia's writing style is absolutely beautiful. I don't know, it switches characters a few times. You just get to see the ups and downs of life. There is kind of I want to say magical, but Samano Pio, we don't ever really find out where he comes from, but his connection to the bees, to the earth, allow him to be in tune with a lot of things. And so he ends up saving his family and being there for them in ways they don't even really know are happening. And I don't know, it was a really good time. I cried at the end. It was really beautiful. Just kind of a bittersweet ending. Yeah, definitely check it out. Oh, one thing I will say about this book is the cover. There's orange tree, there's oranges, flowers, bees. I didn't realize this till after when I was looking at it, and I was she's trying to tell us something on this cover, hello, just a little secret there. I thought the cover was cool when I finally finished the book and realized what was going on. I was okay, I see what you did. The next book I finished was a kind of a leftover from January that I finally was able to wrap up in February, and this is Fox and I by Catherine Raven, narrated by Stacy Golemsky. So this is a memoir that Catherine wrote about her experience post-PhD. She's a really fascinating woman. We learn kind of like what happened in her life. She grew up as a young girl being told she wasn't wanted, essentially learning how to disappear, learning how to be quiet. And so that unfortunately like has carried over into her adult life. She doesn't really have friends. She feels very isolated, and she is emotionally withdrawn and also physically withdraws and prefers to live in the woods and doesn't seek human companionship. However, her world kind of gets shaken up a little bit when a fox starts showing up on her property at the same time every day. And she starts to form a bond with this fox and a companionship. And like for her, this is very strange because she's been so isolated her entire life, but then she's also a scientist, and then she's got her scientist brain that's like, oh, like you can't anthropomorphize animals, like you can't ascribe human characteristics to them, like I need to keep this separate, like you're an animal, I'm a human, like, and I'm a scientist, like they're separate. I'm very much an animal person. Like I talk to my dogs, they have personalities, they have names, like I give them voices. So it was interesting to see like the other side of that, you know, someone who maybe isn't inherently that like connected or in tune to animals, because you can see she is forming this relationship, but she fights it every step of the way until finally she, you know, kind of accepts it and like leans into this friendship with Fox. And in a really beautiful way, like this friendship with Fox ends up opening her to other friendships with humans. And he kind of gives her like the strength to like be herself and like seek out connection. It was a really beautiful and unique memoir. And I just loved like the nature descriptions and like Fox himself, like he does have a perspective in the story, which was kind of cool to see, you know, maybe what he was thinking and like the animal brain. It was really fascinating. Definitely would recommend for a memoir. The next book I finished is The It Girl by Ruth Ware. I had kind of messed up on my book club book for a local coffee shop. I thought it was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but that is the next one that is upcoming. So this month, I'm glad I figured that out. I would have been prepared for the wrong book. This is another thriller, and I have maybe some similar issues that I did with The Only One Left by Riley Sager, where like things start to feel kind of like, well, that's not realistic. I don't know. This starts off with Hannah, and it's a then and now story. Back in the day, Hannah meets April, who is the it girl. She's alluring, she's magnetic, like she's just got something that like draws you to her. She's wealthy, like she fits in. And Hannah doesn't. Like Hannah comes to Oxford from humble beginnings, like she doesn't have wealthy parents, she doesn't come from old money, and so she immediately feels like she doesn't belong. And April like pulls her into her orbit, and we follow basically April, Hannah, and their friend group. Unfortunately, by the end of the year, April is found dead in the dorm room by Hannah. Hannah in present day is struggling. She has a lot of ghosts and just grief from the loss of this friend, and her feelings are complicated after she learns that the guy who was arrested and charged with the murder of April has passed away in prison. And she's really struggling with that, especially because this news is complicated by the fact that he might have been innocent. So she's like, well, fuck, did I just like send an innocent guy to jail, like based on my testimony? She's really struggling. So we get then and now until the timelines merge into what happened, which was kind of interesting. If you like that like academia type of book, there is a lot of school time in this novel, so you do get a lot of like the architecture and like references to like smart books and some of like the posh elevated culture that comes from like an Oxford setting. I think this would be like a fun fall time August read. One thing I liked is the time we spent with April and Hannah. We really explored that female friendship, and April's not a good person. Like, and it was interesting to read about because I've been in friendships like that where you get pulled in by this person and like you want to feel cool, you want to fit in, and so you do things that maybe don't align with who you are, You find yourself changing. And April, like, is a very subtle bully. She's not nice. She can be. And when she's nice, she's great. Like, you want to be her friend, but then she's got this kind of like really nasty side of her. One scene in particular, Hannah doesn't want to stay out late and be at the bar. And so April keeps ordering rounds of drinks and is very pushy about it. Like, come on, like, you'll be fine. Just have another drink and pop a pill. And Hannah's like, no, like, I don't want to do this. And it's like, I'm leaving. And April's like, whatever, like, you're just lame. Doesn't matter. Me and the bartender will keep drinking. And like, then Hannah like feels bad, but then she's like, well, no, like, I'm not gonna feel bad. Like, you're a big girl, you'll get home safe, but like, I'm not drinking with you. And it's just like bullying that, like, in the moment you don't realize it until later you reflect and you're like, oh yeah, like, they're kind of a shitty friend. So it was interesting to like follow this female friendship that was fairly toxic. I did like that because I've had that experience, and so that did resonate. The ending, like, I liked how Ruth Ware kind of cast doubt on everybody, but not in like a super obvious way. Like, I read some thrillers where everybody's suspicious and everyone is a suspect, and you're like, well, duh, like, obviously. But the way that our main character like thinks through everybody was kind of interesting. The ending was like average for me. It felt a little long. There was a few parts where like we get this big reveal, this big standoff, showdown, whatever you want to call it, and then like there's some time and Hannah is like thinking through like why things happened the way they did, why choices were made, why people did XYZ. So she's thinking all of this through, and we're reading her thoughts on the page, and then she has a conversation with somebody and says the exact same thing, and it's like, did we need to like read that twice? That might be like a little nitpicky, but like, the book's over, like, let's wrap it up. like I didn't need like the reveals, more thought processing, more processing, and then more processing. Like, so that was just kind of odd. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, I'm trying with the thrillers. I'm really trying. The second to last book that I finished is Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercott, narrated by January Lavoie. So I really liked January Lavoie's voice. She did a great job. There's a lot of perspectives in this book, and I felt like she brought them to life. Based on the cover, like, I would have thought this was more of a middle grade novel or like a young adult. It was actually a lot older and mature than I was expecting. So if you do pick this up, or like you're thinking this would also be for a younger reader, I wouldn't think so. Don't do it. They say fuck a lot. So Baba Yaga is in this story, and historically she's like a Slavic figure, but she is a Jewish woman in this novel, and she does some very strange witchy things that are not child appropriate. And this story really follows the tragedy that the Jewish community has suffered. So I think, yeah, I didn't know this was part of the story or expect it at all. This story follows Isaac and Beltane, and they are siblings in present day America, which also threw me off because I thought this would be like an old story, like a middle grade young adult folklore. I was wrong all the way around. But we follow these siblings, and they're kind of estranged. Isaac is a con man. He's always on the run. And Beltane's just kind of like done with his shit. And they come together because they've been given this house from a family member, like their great-great-grandmother or something. And Isaac is like, well, you can have this house, but you have to come on tour with me and do the puppet show that we did with our parents. Like, you need to come with me, do it for a year, and I'll keep all the money, and then you can keep the house by the end of this year. Beltane ends up having powers, and so this puppet gig makes her very uncomfortable, but she's like, fine, I'll do it because I want to keep this house. The house is Thistlefoot, and it is sentient. It moves, it's on chicken legs, and we also get like, you know, Isaac and Beltane as our main characters and perspectives, but we also get Thistlefoot as a house, and I thought that was really cool. I liked Thistlefoot. She was cool. Then we also get some of Baba Yaga's story, and like you start to see how all of these different things come together, and how like The Jewish history comes into play. There's very much a theme in this novel about people live on through memories, and fear can become a tangible physical being. So those were really interesting things to explore. I did like the ending. There's a few parts where I got like goosebumps listening. I was like, oh, like that was cool. Yeah, overall I thought it was an enjoyable listen and kind of different than what I would pick up. But yeah, I had a good time with this story. The last book, this was my, I don't know, this might be my favorite. Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder. She has written a few other things. I believe she has a journal that she edits, but I believe this is her like first full-length novel, and it is fantastic. I'm obsessed. I have too many thoughts, if I'm being honest. This book is part of a reading vlog series I want to work on. So I think in that video, like I'll definitely dive more into this, talk about spoilers and like read you quotes, because there's like so much good stuff in here. Oh man, so this follows our main character, who's unnamed. She is unnamed for the entire story. She's referred to as Mother or Nightbitch, and she's struggling. She was previously the director of an art gallery. She was thriving, she loved her career, but finds herself pregnant and having a child at 37, finds herself struggling with motherhood. You see her try to work and be a mom, but ultimately like she ends up becoming a stay-at-home mom and her husband works full-time. This dives into motherhood, loss of identity, feminine rage, like the anger that oozes off the page at everything. Challenges of being a stay-at-home mom, like what's expected of you, how you change as a woman. Like there's so many juicy bits in here, and I was not expecting it to get that deep. I was not expecting like all of the things that Rachel Yoder like puts in this book. Like I wasn't expecting any of it, and so like it's so deep and raw, and like it might be uncomfortable for some people to read. Like, how could a mother like think these things, or how could you like this book? But I think because some of this stuff is really raw and deep and vulnerable, even if it is kind of ugly, like I think that's what makes it better. I'm reading this as someone who's not a mom, and I appreciate this honesty, because I could just, you know, not be having the right conversations or asking the right questions. But like when I talk about kids with other people, they're like, you should do it, you'd be a great mom, and then it like ends there. But like I want to know this stuff. Like I want to know like the dark side of things, because I feel like, one, you're not alone, like someone else out there is experiencing this too. But also like this is more realistic to me than like being happy all the time, because if it's, you know, if motherhood is pitched as this wonderful, beautiful thing, which I know that it can be, like, well, what about the other side of things? Like, what if you are feeling this rage and now you're feeling bad because no one else could possibly feel like this, right? Like now you're alone and you're judging your thoughts and you think you're this horrible mother because you're struggling. Like there is, I think, space for both of those things to exist. And Rachel Yoder, I feel like, really tackles it. I don't think this book will be for everyone, because while there's a lot of beautiful things about motherhood and just like the female like archetype in here, there's also like a strange aspect to it, because our main character is turning into a dog. So like she has canines growing and she has like fur on the back of her neck, and she like starts to smell things really well and like feels a tail that she like starts to wag. So there's some really strange things happening within this. Like it's a 250-page book and it packs a punch. When I was reading this, all I kept thinking about is how I would want A24 to make this a movie, because I think they could do this in a very unsettled way. Because there's definitely like some suspense, some eerie parts. There's quite a bit of gore. There's some bunnies in here and they don't really make it out. If you catch my drift. Nightbitch gets hungry, okay? The writing style is interesting too. Like it's very stream of conscious. There's no quotations, there's no chapters. It's just broken up into 3 parts. And I don't know, I loved it. I'm super excited for you to see this vlog where I talk more about this book. So that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Oh my gosh, thinking about all the books I read and talking about them was so fun. Definitely read some great stuff. I'm excited for March. I'm excited to see what books I pick up, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!